Hey everyone, welcome to the Royce Reports. I'm your host Royce, and on this channel we talk mostly Xbox related news, but I do dabble in other game related topics and reviews. So if you think you might be interested, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And today we're going to be talking about God of War. I have now finally gone to playing God of War 2018 in anticipation for God of War Ragnarok, which is dropping tomorrow. And so I finally was able to beat it, and these are my thoughts. So with that, let's get into the video. It's shit. Obviously, this game is regarded as one of the best games to ever be created, and so I finally was able to jump in and play it for the first time, and I have to agree with it. It is probably one of the best games that I've ever played. And so, what makes this game so good? And we'll break it down section by section, but let's first talk about the story. So with the story, you're kind of just thrust into this new environment, and you are literally just thrown into the middle of a lot of stuff. And that could be kind of risky, because a lot of games, if you throw someone into the middle of something, you could kind of lose the audience in that. But this game actually does a great job at making you want to know those questions that you have and hopefully finding the answers to that. So with that, you were thrown into the middle of Atreus' mother passing away, and you are tasked with going and delivering her ashes into the highest peak in all the realms, to her final resting place. And so you play as Kratos, and Atreus is your little sidekick, and you guys go on this adventure together. And along the way, you have a lot of people who are trying to stop you from doing that. And the reasons why they are motivated to prevent you from doing that are told throughout the story. And you kind of figure out like a lot of history that has gone down and things that you didn't know prior to. And they obviously don't answer a lot of questions that you have, like why is Kratos where he is at, or how did he meet these people that he's involved with now, and how does he have a son? So obviously you're gonna have to piece some of that together yourself, but they do a great job with that, and it kind of want to keep on going, because you just want to figure out everything you can about this world, because the world that they crafted here, the Norse mythology, is perfectly done. Now going forward, every time I think of Norse, I'm gonna think of God of War, because the world itself is so beautifully done and beautifully crafted and really well fleshed out, and realized that this is Norse mythology. But yeah, like the most important thing about this game, though, is your relationship with Atreus. And I love how they tackle that. They have Atreus, who is very young, and he's obviously going to be going with you to go lay his mother to rest. And so he has to be combat ready in order to do that. And as you progress through the game, you see him progress his skills. And it is done wonderfully, because as you first start out, you notice that he's missing shots, or he is not calling out enemies, or he doesn't know how to handle certain things, or he's overreacting. And the relationship between Kratos and Atreus is very meaningful, and I could imagine it speaks to a lot of people because of their own relationships with their own parents. And this is it's captured very, very well. And Atreus and Kratos are a standout. Voice acting wise, it is bar none. It's something that you should always be looking to as how to do voice acting in your video game. But the main focus of this story is that relationship. And you see Kratos from previous God of War games as this very battle-hardened person, this very angry person.
gods, you came back for me!
I didn't come back for you.
But Kratos had no intention of resting yet. He intended to live, to return to Earth and complete his quest.
Let go, fool! You won't drag me down to that cursed river!
There is a task left for me above. I will see it completed.
You again?
And you see him do a bunch of things that you would never think possible. He's defeated gods, he's defeated monsters and giants, and he's even defeated things that are considered invincible. And now he faces his hardest challenge yet, which is trying to be a father. And that is very, very out of the box for his character. And I like that a lot. It puts him in a different element, and it kind of forces him to have everything he's learned over the past few hundred years and utilize it to make sure that Atreus is safe, but at the same time that he doesn't burn that bridge, because Atreus is all he has left in this world. And the same goes for Atreus, where Kratos is all he has left in this world. And so their dynamic as you progress through the game gets better and better. And just like how Atreus gets better in combat, the relationship between Kratos and Atreus also improved along that as well, which is the best part of the game in my opinion. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for those people that haven't played it, and because I didn't receive any spoilers the whole entire time. It is awesome from beginning to end, and I have a few gripes with the story, and it's only a few, so I'm not going to spoil it, but there's some character decisions that they decide to do that kind of shift the way you think about a character, and there's certain events that lead up to that, obviously, that make those characters decide to do a 180. But I just don't like the path they decided to go on, not because of the story, but because of how they wrote it. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't a gradual kind of change. It was boom, on a dime, this happened, and now these characters have just flipped, and that's not how things really work. That is like probably the only gripe that I have with it. But as the story progressed and the way the story ended, it was awesome. It was amazing. So something I want to touch on a little bit more was what they decided to do with Kratos in this game, which is completely change him from the previous game. In the previous games, you have him be this very battle-hardened person who is not very relatable by any sense of the word. But in this one, they actually went and they took this character who is larger than life and brought him down to our level and was able to make him relatable. And I like that a lot. I love when games do this. For example, with Halo 4, I loved when they did that with Master Chief. I know a lot of people don't like what 343 did with the Halo franchise, but I really enjoyed the Halo 4 campaign. And what made Halo 4 so good to me was how they grabbed Master Chief and they made him compassionate, and they had him be sort of in love or have a care for someone that he's been with since Halo Combat Evolved, which is Cortana, which is this relationship that no one can understand other than Master Chief, John 117, and Cortana. And that made the game for me because it was able to see this character who is this unstoppable killing machine as something more, as a actual human being behind that armor. And the same goes for Kratos. He is a god and he is unstoppable and he is just a killing machine. But in this one, they are actually able to make you understand what he's going through and understand that he is grown. He has such a significant amount of growth between the old God of Wars and now. He is much more wiser and he's much more older, and that reflects in a lot of things. The way he talks to Atreus, the way he views the world and how he sees these spirits that need help, or all these gods that are asking him for things. And you see him kind of open up or kind of joke around a little bit, and that's very un-Kratos like, you know, and that was very refreshing, and I love that take, and I'm glad they went that route because it really made me connect with Kratos more than I have ever had before. And I used to play these games nonstop back when I was a kid. So it's so crazy to me that now I'm finally actually having a feeling for Kratos, which is unique. There's another thing about this game that I didn't expect, was the humor. This game is actually really funny, and there's a lot of characters in here that they introduced, which are the dwarves, the dwarf brothers they are really funny. They banter very well. The banter between Kratos and the dwarves is pretty funny. And Kratos in general, because he is so just stern and very non-emotional, he gives off these vibes of like not giving a shit, and that's just so funny to me. And I was laughing a lot throughout the game. And Atreus himself, his reactions to things, or him describing the world in itself, is pretty funny. You end up finding someone named Mimir later on in the game, and he brings a lot of light to the situation and kind of gives Atreus someone to talk to, because Atreus can't really talk to Kratos because Kratos is a very very silent person, is very serious in tone, and Atreus being a kid, you kind of need more interactions, more than just, we need to talk about the fight, we need to talk about what you can do better and how to improve. Instead, you're getting, hey, like, why is this world like this, what is going on over here? And so it's really cool. I love the banter. I love the writing is just phenomenal. It is very funny. It is very heartfelt. The world itself, right? So the world of this Norse mythology is, you are in the center of this world. There's 9 realms in total. Midgard is where you're gonna be spending most of your time. A lot of your time actually is spent in Midgard, and Midgard is pretty big. It's a pretty big world, and there's so much to do, and there's so many collectibles and little tiny things that constantly have you doing something, right? And you don't have to go and collect all these things unless you want the platinum, but there's a lot of little things thrown out around this world, sprinkled around for you to go and kind of collect gear for yourself and to make Kratos better, make Atreus better, or whatever it may be. And I like that. I like that aspect of it. And at the beginning of the game, I was like extremely invested in this world. I was blown away by it. But as you progress through the game and you get further in, you start to realize that you do a lot of backtracking, and that's not a bad thing, right? Games do backtracking all the time. It's very Metrovania. You have other realms that you could visit, that you could go to. And I thought that there was going to be layers to this, and I thought the worlds that you're going to visit were going to be as big as Midgard was, but that's not true. So you have 9 realms in total, like I said earlier. Midgard is the one that you spend all of your time in, and there's 2 that you visit story-wise that are mandatory for you to go to. And these ones that you visit are kind of, I consider them levels almost. Like, they're not very, there's no real reason to go back unless you want to pick up the collectibles. But that's the only reason you go there, is for the story. And then once you complete that task for the story, you leave and you never have to go back there. And these worlds are very small and condensed, and they're not as big as Midgard. And it kind of throws me off, because these worlds are supposed to be where all these creatures live, these different races, and you go there and there's nothing there. So yeah, you visit those 2 worlds for the story. Then you have 2 other worlds that you're able to visit, and those worlds are specifically only for challenges, and that is a huge letdown for me. I was kind of bummed out because I was super excited to go and figure out how to get to those worlds, and when you finally do figure it out, you get there and all it is just challenge maps, and it's just a huge bummer, because I wanted more. I wanted to see more to this world that they crafted. And like, that's not it's a negative thing, but it's also a positive thing because of how well they designed Midgard. I wanted to see how they were going to design the other realms, and upon going to those realms and finding out that they're not really as fleshed out as how Midgard is, that you kind of leave with a little bit of sadness because I want that same level of detail, but in those other realms. And then you have a realm that you pretty much are trying to get to the whole entire game, which is where the highest peak in all the realms is located at. And the whole point of the game is getting there. So that's where you're going to be doing. The whole game is looking for a way to get to that specific realm. And that realm, I don't consider a real realm, because when you go to that realm, they kind of tell you like, hey, this is the end of the game. You might want to go and do everything you can before finishing it. You might want to upgrade your character and everything. And you could actually you could 100% the game before you even go into that realm. So that realm is specifically used for story purposes, and that is it. And there's a couple of realms that you can't visit at all that are blocked off to you because Odin doesn't want you going there for whatever reason, which they're probably gonna utilize in God of War Ragnarok. But after spending so much time in it, I kind of started to get bored almost. Like I wasn't fully not captivated by it, but it was just, I wanted more. And because you backtrack so much and you see so much of the same things, you kind of you grow numb to it, and it doesn't have that same impact of awe and amazement as it did when I first walked through there. So it kind of dampens the feeling of the world. And I wish they would have fleshed it out more, and I wish you would be able to visit more realms. But let's also move on and talk about the gameplay aspect to it, right? So the gameplay aspect is definitely not your typical hack and slash like it was previously in the other God of War games. And I don't know if a lot of hardcore God of War fans are actually upset about that. I enjoyed the last God of War games a lot. Like, I thought it was very fun. But this new combat is pretty refreshing, and I liked how there's so much to it. And I think that if you don't utilize all the moves and the combos and stuff, and you just button mash, you will actually be hurting yourself in the long run, because these combos, these attacks, these different special abilities that you gain throughout the story and throughout the game, they actually matter in most combat situations, and they could change the tide of the combat if you utilize them properly. And it makes it a lot easier for you to just wipe out swarms of enemies if you actually utilize the combat like it's supposed to be utilized. But I like it a lot. I love the Leviathan axe. This thing is perfect. I love throwing it and calling it back, and he just grabs it and it gives you that thunk. It feels awesome. It's probably one of the better feeling weapons ever. So it is so satisfying to use, and it was definitely a standout among many of my different combat situations. So I love that. There are challenges that you can encounter, which are Valkyries, and these things are bitches. They're fucking bitches. They're very difficult, but once you kind of learn one, you pretty much could apply that to all of them. They all have the same exact attack pattern. They might not use the attack pattern the same, but you could recognize their attacks based off of just beating one and learning. And after the first one, I didn't really have any trouble with any of the other ones because of that. So that's kind of a bummer. But that also leads me to the boss fights. The boss fights in this game were so disappointing. I wanted a lot more. Like, cinematic wise, amazing, right? They're beautiful. They make sense story wise, and I love them for that aspect. But they are just your very stereotypical boss fights. It is, hey, they have a set move, and you just learn their move pattern, and then you use the weapons that you have to counteract those abilities. And so the boss fights need a lot of work, and especially when you're coming from a game franchise that is known for the boss fights. Like, God of War series has some of the best boss fights ever. There's probably millions and millions of people watching these boss fights all the time on YouTube because of how amazing they are and how fun they are. And these ones were kind of your everyday run-of-the-mill boss fights, and they really made me want more out of them. And yeah, those were kind of a bummer. there is some minor RPG elements to this game where you're going to go and collect gear to spend money on to boost your armor or Atreus' bow, and there's many different things that you could use to upgrade. And I kind of like it. It's very simple. It's not very intricate at all. So it's very welcoming to a bunch of new players. If you're not really into RPGs, this is a good starting point to kind of get the grasp of stats and different abilities and stuff. So I appreciate them doing it. But I feel like the material that you need to upgrade everything that you actually want to upgrade isn't available to you most of the times. And most of the gear that I ended up getting I couldn't even upgrade it until late game. So, and at that point I didn't really need it. So it was just kind of just there, just to have numbers, to make you feel like you're getting better. And that kind of leads me into the enemy design. The enemy design in this game is very lackluster and kind of, it makes want to, there's a lot to be desired to it, because yeah, they have good enemies throughout the game that differ, but at the same time, it's very repetitive. So the enemy type that you're going to be facing a lot is probably going to be Reavers or Draugr, and I consider these to be one enemy, right? The Draugr are just these zombies that come and try to kill you, and the game considers them multiple enemies because you have different forms to them. You'll have a Draugr with a sword, a Draugr with a shield, a Draugr with like a heavy attack, a Draugr with projectiles, a Draugr with speed, or a Draugr with like a special weapon. And then you have different types of like Hellwalkers, which are just Draugrs, but you just have to use a different weapon to kill them. Or you might have to use ice, so you might have to use your Leviathan axe to kill them, or you might have to use a different weapon to use fire on these other enemies. And you have poison type enemies, like, but they're all the same. Nothing changes, and you don't really have any mini bosses throughout the games. You have like trolls or these ancients, but these things are all the same. You approach them the exact same way. They're considered different, and they have names to them, so they're considered final bosses, or not final bosses, but mini bosses. But at the same time, they're not different at all. They just have a different name, and they react the same exact way. And that's such a disappointment to me. Like, I wanted either mini bosses throughout different areas, or just have a better variety of enemies. They do have a decent amount of enemies. I don't want to like say that they don't. It's just that the enemies that you do encounter, they just swap the type, like poison, fire, ice, or whatever, and that's the real only difference between them. And that's kind of, I didn't really like that aspect to it. It kind of, towards the end game, it kind of dragged a little more, but because the combat is so fluid and so fun, and Atreus helping you throughout the game makes it very, very rewarding, that I didn't really mind a whole lot, because it was just like, all right, I'm gonna get through these guys, but I'm super looking forward to combat, so I don't really care. And I'm actually super stoked to see where God of War Ragnarok takes this game. And I don't know if Ragnarok is supposed to be the last one. I think it is for this story, but I'm interested to see where they would go in the future with this, because I think they did a great job bringing this game into a modern audience, and that could not work if they didn't do it just right, and they did exactly that. And this game, in my eyes, is a really great game, one of the best games I've ever played, and I can easily give it an A. I had an amazing time. I loved every second I was involved with this world, and I am super stoked to get my hands on Ragnarok, and I'm glad that I experienced this in 4K 60 on my PlayStation 5, because I think that is the best way to actually play this game, because it allows you to play it and see this world in its marvel, and it still blows me away that this is able to run on the PlayStation 4. But it's so smooth, it's so fun. The characters really mean a lot to me now. I'm super attached to them, and I'm just glad that I did decide to play it, and I'm glad that Now I don't have to wait very long, like most people had to wait for this. They had to wait 4 years for them to get their hands on Ragnarok. I just have to wait one more day, and I'll be able to get and play it. So I'm super eager. That day is going to take a really long time, and I kind of want it to be now, but sadly it is not. But I can't give this game enough praise. There's just those little nitpicks that I have that couldn't give it that 8+ rating. Maybe God of War Ragnarok will get there. Who knows? But this game is one of the best games I've ever played, and I am super glad that I was able to get to play it. So what do you guys think? Do you think that God of War Ragnarok is gonna be better than God of War? Do you think God of War is one of the best PlayStation exclusives out there? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. I, again, love this game. I used to think that The Last of Us was the best PlayStation game, and I still think that, but this was right there next to it the whole entire time until the very end, where I was like, okay, I don't think it really beats The Last of Us, but it is right there, maybe with Uncharted for me. And I know that's weird because a lot of people don't really consider Uncharted to be one of the greatest games of all time, but I love Uncharted 4 and Uncharted 2. So yeah, that's my review of God of War. So if you liked what you saw and you'd like to see more, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll be seeing you guys on the next one. And remember, take it easy.